The Democrat governors and mayors who are resisting the use of federal law enforcement officers to bring order to their cities don't know much history. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot and Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler might want to take a look at the actions of their Democrat predecessors in resisting the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s. After a 1954 Supreme Court ruling known as the Brown versus Board of Education decision, which said that racially segregated schools were inherently unequal, Democrat Arkansas Governor Orville Faubus in 1957 decided he was going to defy the Supreme Court ruling by calling out the Arkansas National Guard to block the first 9 black students from entering Little Rock Central High School as part of the federally ordered racial desegregation. It became known as the Little Rock Crisis of 1957. Republican President Dwight D. Eisenhower had taken on the Nazis and won, so there was no way the Democrat governor of Arkansas was going to get him to back down. So Eisenhower federalized the Arkansas National Guard and ordered them to go home. Then he sent in the U.S. Army, but not just any Army unit. He sent the 101st Airborne Division to enforce the Supreme Court decision to desegregate schools. Eisenhower wanted to make sure that everyone got the message that the federal government was not to be trifled with. The idea that President Donald Trump is overstepping his authority in sending federal law enforcement to bring order to cities where Democrat elected officials insist on allowing violent anarchists to literally rule the streets ignores history. In fact, if President Trump did not restore order, he would be shirking his duty. Just as if Eisenhower had allowed the Democrat governor of Arkansas to defy a Supreme Court ruling ordering school integration. It is nearly impossible today to find any sane person who claims that Eisenhower overstepped his authority or that Faubus was right in blocking the integration of schools in Arkansas. Back in 1957, no one was hurt. It all ended peacefully as the rule of law was firmly applied and backed up with a show of federal force. Fast forward 63 years. You are out driving the kids somewhere late yesterday afternoon, buzzing along at 70 miles an hour on an 8-lane interstate highway in suburban Denver, Colorado, far away from the recent troubles of the West Coast. Suddenly around the corner, and there in front of you, blocking at least your 4 lanes of the interstate, are 1,000 so-called protesters. An equal mix of young white university students and more hardcore Marxists, most of them armed in one way or another, and just looking for an excuse to hurt someone. What to do? You can't turn around on the interstate. Surely you can just play it cool and slowly get through the crowd. There was no time to call the police. You realize suddenly that you are, possibly for the first time in your life, totally on your own. Let's let some cell phone camera footage posted on Twitter last night show you what it was like to suddenly be thrust into a lawless America.
I told you!
Get the license plate!
That's what the Aurora Police Department did! That's what they did! Because they failed to hold traffic! Just put it in park and hold on, man.
Excuse me.
Get in the road! Line up! On the line! For the line! Get in line! Get in line! Hold the line! Get over here! Hold the line! Get onto the side, please!
So what do you think? Does this look like a peaceful protest to you? Would you mind being in that situation with kids in the car? It was scary to me just watching it. But you will never see this on CNN. Nope, even though it happened last night, it just doesn't fit into their narrative, which portrays President Trump as a racist Nazi who is sending in stormtroopers to prevent this kind of peaceful protest. In the comments section below, please tell me what percentage of the American voting electorate do you think would like to have this be the new normal in the United States for the next 4 years? My guess would be certainly less than 10%. I'm still reporting from just outside the Citadel of American freedom. Good day.
And you can now
Good evening, everybody. From the Sahuarita Tea Party YouTube channel, this is Don Woolley, and we're bringing you tonight a guest who's going to talk about how to prepare yourself for what's going on in the current times. And I just ran that video with Bill Still showing you what happened in Denver, Colorado Sunday night when a bunch of, I'll call them morons, tried to block an 8-lane freeway, and how crazy it was. Someone fired guns. They fired 45 shots at that Jeep, and luckily didn't hit anybody. But they did hit a bystander, or a couple of bystanders. Not bystanders, they were some of the crazy people out on the road or on the other side of the road. So you know, we've got real problems, and this can happen in a town near you. We of course pray to God it never happens down in the Sahuarita area, but it could happen up in Tucson certainly. So you know, how to prepare yourself. How would you prepare yourself for something like that? What would you do? We're waiting for Paul Fitch to join us on Zoom, and he'll be on in a few minutes. He will go through some slides that he sent to me, and we'll put them up on screen that he can talk about, and we will be switching back and forth between video and audio. I'm sorry, video and the slides themselves. So kind of bear with us. It's possible to put slides up here on the program, but it's a little bit difficult. So we'll do the best we can, and as soon as we get an indication that Paul's going to be on the hooked up with us, we'll let you know. So what's going on in Sahuarita right now? Well, we're about 106 degrees or hotter, and temperature seems to go up. Well, there's Paul. I see Paul. Paul, do you see me? Okay, I'll get you unmuted. Hold on a sec.
Okay, I should be there now.
Yeah, your mic's on now, so you're good.
Okay.
And we're just telling the folks we're coming live from Sahuarita, Arizona. We're also on YouTube. If you, I will call out the slide numbers as you go through them. I'll just tell you slide 1, and you'll know what's showing on the screen. Okay. So talk a little bit about yourself, Paul, and the Pima County Preparedness Team.
Okay, I'm getting a strange feedback here, Don. Okay, let me. You know what? I got the. All right. Okay, I know it's wrong.
I don't hear anything on my end. So.
Okay, well, I had the YouTube on at the same time.
Yeah, that's what you. Yeah, just
All
to
right,
turn it down a little bit and just listen on the Zoom link. So we're folks. We're coming from Sahuarita, Arizona. This is Paul Fitch on from the Pima County Preparedness Team, and we're going to talk a little bit about how you can prepare for what's going on right now with the pandemic in Arizona, and what the government's doing, and what you should be doing to protect yourselves. And I just showed them a video. I don't know if you saw it or not, Paul. There was a incident in Denver on Sunday night, and I don't know if you saw it or not, but about 1,000 idiots, morons, tried to block a freeway in Denver, I-225, which is east of Denver in Aurora, Colorado. Goes through Aurora and goes out, basically goes out to the airport.
Yeah. I saw the video,
Okay.
and I'd seen that video earlier.
Yeah, it looked like, a matter of fact, I think it was the same color Jeep as yours. That wasn't you, was it?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't me.
Well, that's good.
No. Okay. Let's see. I'm on Zoom here,
Yeah.
and I've got your picture, and I'm
if you got
assuming that the slides will come up here on
You got
Zoom.
your-
Is that
No, it won't come up on Zoom. It'll be on YouTube.
okay?
So,
That's tricky because when I have YouTube on, I get that feedback thing.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
not getting it right now.
do you have a way to look? Have you got the slides in your hand, or have you got a way to look at the slides?
Yeah, I do. Let me see how that messes everything else up. Okay, we're going back to slide 1.
Yeah, let me get it up on the screen for folks. Okay.
Okay.
I'm working to do that. Okay, I've got.
Yeah.
I've
Should
got-
say, welcome to the Pima County Preparedness Team Sahuarita Tea Party online meeting.
Right. So let me get us ironed out here a minute. Hold on here a sec. We're stretched out a little bit here. And okay, so let's go back to welcome, and I think that slide is up there now. It says, welcome to the Pima County Preparedness Team Sahuarita Tea Party online meeting.
Well, that's good. That's what it's supposed to say.
Okay.
That's what I sent you.
So we got the right one. So I'm going to go to slide 2 right now.
Okay, and I will too.
It's a rule of threes.
Yeah, the Pima County Preparedness Team, and you see our little logo up there. Are you ready? We operate. Everything I do is operated basically on the rule of threes. The rule of threes is an old survival understanding: 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. Now, those are all guidelines. 3 minutes without air is pretty standard. Most people can't hold their breath for more than about 3 minutes. The 3 hours without shelter, that's a kind of a location temperature sensitive thing. You can last many more hours without shelter in Sahuarita than you can in Denver in the wintertime. But it's a general rule of thumb that if you were caught out in the cold and rain without shelter, you could expire in 3 hours. 3 days without water, again, this is kind of a limited definition because you might be able to make 4 days on a cool afternoon where you're doing new work. But if you were hiking from here to Tucson or here to Flagstaff without water in the summer, 3 days would be a long stretch. You might not make it that far. And 3 weeks without food, again, goes without saying that if you are active, very active, you'll need food before that, and you might be able to stretch it a little bit if you're completely inactive. There's one other 3 that I read about. It's not included in my regular thing, and that's 3 seconds without hope.
Yeah.
We try. What we're trying to do with the rule of threes is make sure that everybody has sufficient supplies and equipment on hand to make it past these threes. So in other words, you have air respirators, masks. You can tape up a room that keeps toxic fumes and smoke out so that you can go more than 3 minutes without air. You can throw a blanket around yourself and you've got some semblance of shelter, but you might want something more efficient than that, an emergency tent or something like that to give you the time without shelter. And 3 days without water, we're going to talk about water a little bit more because here in the desert, of course, water is a big issue for us. And we're going into the monsoon season right now, although I see no clouds out there. But I've set up a water harvesting program, and that's something I like to sell. Not sell, I don't sell anything, but I like to push for my people to work on, because here in the Green Valley, Sahuarita area, a 1,000 square foot roof will generally collect 7,200 gallons of water a year based on the average rainfall here. And 7,200 gallons is a lot of water. I have about 2,000 gallons of water storage area, and it fills up pretty fast in the monsoon season, and then I use it sparingly during the year, and it'll refill in the January, February rainy season we have here. And then 3 weeks without food, we're looking at any number of types of food. We can have freeze-dried, dehydrated, canned, fresh, frozen foods, things like that. So you want a pantry that will last you for some time, and we'll get into that a little bit later too. So if you want to go on to slide 3.
Okay, I'm going to slide 3.
Tell me when it's up.
Okay, it's up now. It says normalcy bias.
Yeah. Okay. One of the things that makes my job difficult is that people are reluctant to prepare, and you have to have the right mindset to be a prepper. And it's hard to get some people over the hump because of what's called normalcy bias.
I mean, none of this stuff is free?
None of this stuff is free. But the normalcy bias itself is a feeling by people that I'm 74 years old, and my neighborhood has never been invaded by a gun-toting communist. So there's no reason for me to prepare, because it's never going to happen, because it's never happened before. There's never been a tornado of any sense here in Sahuarita. If it's a flood, I'm at 3,000 feet here, so it's not likely to get into my house. There hasn't been a hurricane that I know of do any damage in Sahuarita. So people are their mindset is that it's never happened before. Why would I want to go spend a bunch of money getting ready for something that isn't going to happen? As I noted here, it's expensive. If you want to have a year's worth of food on hand, you're going to have to buy a year's worth of food up front. and that's going to cost you $3,000 or $4,000 to get just dehydrated or freeze dried food. One other problem is a lot of people have a belief that this is a good idea, but their spouse doesn't believe like they do. And so consequently, you've got not only have to come up with the money, but you have to come up with the Minister of Finance approval. And that can be very difficult to get. So that's one of the reasons why, or some of the reasons why people don't jump into preparation as strongly as I wish they would. I did say I had a couple of people contact me when this COVID thing came out and actually thank me for getting them prepared as best I had so that they didn't have to run out and buy toilet paper when the COVID thing shut everything down.
Who would have guessed, right?
Yeah, that's right. But I did run out of wine.
So I wanted to mention to you, and for the audience, back in the early 80s in this area, we had one of those tropical weather patterns and we got a lot of rain in this area. And I wasn't here, but I was in Southern California. And this area flooded, the Santa Cruz River flooded up above I-19. Okay, everything east of I-19 was flooded. So it can happen here.
Exactly.
And it has happened here before, and that was about, I don't know, 30 years ago now, but it can happen here. That was when we had you remember they used to, all they could talk about was the El Nino, right?
Right.
That was the big weather thing back then, the El Nino this, El Nino. And now that every once in a while they kind of mention it, well, it's coming back or it's not coming back or whatever. But that's what they called it then, the El Nino. I think it was 1984, 83. I don't know. Patty was living here. And a lot of East Tucson was really flooded. They had to helicopter out and pick people up in their houses out in eastern Tucson. So it was really flooded here. So just for people to be aware that it can happen here.
Yes, and interestingly enough, part of what I teach is exit routes. If I remember that flood, from what I understand, the bridge over the Santa Cruz, I-19 bridge over the Santa Cruz, actually washed out.
Yeah.
And fortunately, here in Green Valley and Sahuarita, we have the old Nogales Highway, which if you're on that side of the Santa Cruz, you can take up to Tucson. And if you're on this side, you can go over to Mission Road and get up to Tucson. So if that, was that for me? If that main bridge is washed out, you've still got routes back up out of the small town here to the big city if you need it. So that's part of our training is exit routes from your area and how to map them and how to be ready to use them. If we could move on to slide 4.
Right? Okay, I'm on slide 4. It says, we are prepared and there is a second wave, blah, blah, blah.
Right. Okay, so here's what we're looking at. There's a lot of information coming out of Washington, and some of it seems a little shaky, but there is a thought that there will be a second wave, and some have said it's going to be a second wave of COVID-19, or it could be COVID-20. And the term COVID-20 is kind of pushed by people who are saying, well, this first wave of COVID-19 was actually a biowar effort by the Chinese. It was released into the United States. And now they know what the COVID-19 does to us, both physically and financially, that they may come up with something even stronger as COVID-20 and insert that into our system. So we can save ourselves a lot of exposure to the virus by not having to go out for supplies as often. So if you're prepared and you have food in your house and you have your water set up, you might find that you don't have to go out and venture out into the virus area as often as you would if you were not prepared. Of course, as we saw, our shelves got emptied pretty fast, and some of the shelves are still pretty empty at Walmart here. So being prepared can prevent you having to go out there and fight the government. Might even save you contact, I noted, with authorities who are enforcing travel bans or mask requirements. So that's something you want to kind of avoid if you can help it.
So Paul, I know that we've had some friends, some people we know, and you know them too. They've traveled a little bit and said some of them went north. Said there were no problems up through Utah and Idaho up to Montana, traveling, by car. I'm talking about. However, some states to the east of us, New Mexico, I believe, has banned Arizonans, and you have to go into quarantine if you go to stay in New Mexico. They got a crazy governor over there, who just happens to be a Democrat, of course. And of course, Cuomo in New York, he's banned Arizonans. If you go to New York, you have to quarantine for 14 days. Have you known anybody that's had to go through that, or any other states that are doing that?
No, a friend of mine just flew from here, from Tucson to Dallas and back, and he didn't indicate any issues. He went and spent 3 days with his daughter in Dallas, and didn't have any quarantines or issues that he mentioned.
Yeah, and they have just tell everybody, they have a sane governor named Greg Abbott. So
right,
he is a Republican.
Right. So anyway, the point is if you are prepared, you can save yourself some hassle out there on the street. And we'll go on to 5.
Yeah, let me get back here. So what have we learned, right?
Yeah. Okay, what we've learned is that COVID-19 is contagious. It's especially dangerous to elderly. It has a relatively low or very low fatality rate. If you look at the overall numbers, even with the 150,000 people that have theoretically died of COVID.
Out of 330 million.
Out of 330 million. But if you really dig down deep into that, a lot of places are listing COVID as the cause of death, when it's not really a COVID death. It's a death with somebody who has COVID.
Right. This all goes back to the brilliant Obama coding system.
Something like that. But anyway, the hospitals, I'm told, are making money. Not making money. That's not the point. They get paid a different rate if somebody comes in with a COVID problem, as opposed to with a heart attack or a broken leg or anything else.
But if they die, a higher rate.
Yeah. But if they die and it's listed as COVID, they get something out of it. So anyway, I think it has a very low fatality rate. And even if the numbers the government has given us are real, it's still not a very high death rate. What we do know is that COVID-19 has caused incredible economic hardship. I was listening to a woman today who was saying that 2/3 of the businesses that are less than 3 years old, and this was up in Chino Valley, but 2/3 of the businesses that are less than 3 years old will probably not come back. They're closed now. The government won't let them reopen, and they've run out of money. Most of these small businesses run hand to mouth. They barely meet payrolls. They barely make their rent. And when you shut their income off for a month or two, they're out of cash, and they just close and have to go find a job. And of course, right now, finding a job is hard because there's too many people unemployed at this moment.
Big shut.
And a lot of businesses are not being allowed to reopen.
Yeah, and if you talk to Randy Graff, our Chamber of Commerce president, CEO, he'll tell you the same thing's happening in this area. That some of these businesses just can't go on, shut down. And,
right.
And who's to say, and I talked about this with Ken Bennett last night, who's the one that says whether you're essential or not? Ken believes, and I believe the same thing, that if you're a working man supporting your family, you're as essential as anybody else. Okay.
Exactly. And you're hyper essential to your family.
That's right. Yeah.
And then the last bullet I've got down there is that COVID-19 has been used as a reason for government overreach and control. And this, we're thinking, many of us, is kind of why they've come down so hard on everybody with the masks. And it's all control. It's all pushing to see how far the government can go before the people react and react revolutionary.
Yeah.
So that's what the COVID has been used for, as a hammer. To me, this is kind of an advanced TSA thing. To me, the whole purpose of TSA wasn't to airline safety; it was to get people to stand in line and show their papers.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
That's my feeling.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of TSA, so that would be a topic for another good show.
Yes, it would. Okay, let's move on to 6 here.
Okay, I'm on 6, which is what can we do differently?
That's right. So what we want to do is we want to look back at what we did and how it affected us, and what could we do differently so that when this next second wave, they call it, or some other event forces us back into the same situation.
Or if we just keep going on right now.
Well,
yeah.
yeah, except right now, I can still run up to Walmart or Safeway and get a basket of groceries.
Right.
But if we have another shutdown like we've had the first time, and they stop bringing truckloads of food in, the stores have about 3 days worth of food.
Right.
They practice just in time because they don't want spoilage any more than necessary. So they have about 3 days worth of food on hand, and they keep getting resupplied on a daily basis as 1 day's worth of food is taken out. But when the trucks quit running in, then we're going to end up with empty shelves, things like that. And if the next event were an electrical failure, then you'd lose the freezers and the refrigeration, and that food would all spoil very quickly. So we want to look at that. So what we want to do is review our stockpiles and backfill those voids and shortages where we ate up our supplies. If you went into your pantry and took out 6 cans of beans, now would be a good time to go buy 6 more cans of beans and get them back on the shelf. If you didn't have, if you were short or needed more of something, toilet paper, for instance, then now would be a good time to go buy a few extra rolls. And one of the things, as I mentioned in one of the earlier slides, prepping can be expensive, but there's ways to do it in a budgetary way. And that is, do your normal shopping, just throw in 2 extra cans of beans and 1 roll of toilet paper, and it'll add $1.50 to your grocery bill. But now you've got a stockpile started. And if you do that every time you go shopping, pretty soon you've got a basic stockpile and a supply that will help you when the time comes. So look at what you were short and what you needed more of. For instance, if you buy your butter in 3-ounce tubs, get a 6-ounce tub and put it in the back of the refrigerator or put it in the freezer. And then when the time comes, you'll have the butter you need. And then the next question is, did we have the right supplies on hand? Like I said, I ran out of wine. That was foolish. I've corrected that to a certain extent. It just depends on how long the thing lasts this time. But you want to make sure you have the right supplies on hand. So look at what you used the last time. One of the things we stress is you want to make your emergency food supply as close to what you normally eat as possible. And the reason for that is you start going into exotic foods, MREs, things of that nature, you will upset your stomach. And the last thing you need in a problem situation like this is an upset stomach. I used to travel internationally when I worked for Motorola, and we would go to this physician's assistant. He was hired by Motorola and was an expert on international travel. And one of the things that he told me that was very interesting was that a lot of people go to places like India or Burma or Egypt, some places that might be considered second or third world, and they get Montezuma's revenge. And he said normally it's not amoeba or dysentery or anything like that. It's merely that the local spices are so different from what we're used to that our gut reactions are violent, and you end up with a problem. So he recommended, and I did it, and I never had a problem. In 15 and a half years of traveling internationally, ate 4 Pepto-Bismol tablets every morning when I got up when I was in a country like that, India or Burma or Hong Kong, Singapore, whatever. And by doing that, it lines coats your stomach and protects it from those strange spices. And so I never had a problem in 15 and a half years of international travel with food like that. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're going to eat food, if you're going to stockpile food that's not your regular diet, get some Pepto-Bismol tablets to help get you through that program. Okay, can we sustain ourselves if this next run is longer? Well, that's the big question, and it's going to be something we have to face as best we can. I'm going to go into that a little bit more when we get down to some more slides here. And one of the big things that a lot of us worry about is, what are we going to do if the power goes out? This country is so dependent on electricity for everything, from our medical to even our legal system operates on computers. The grocery stores, power for the freezers and even for the cash registers. They're not going to be able to conduct business if they don't have electricity. They're not going to have food if they don't have electricity.
Yeah, many of them don't have backup generators.
No, right. And even if they did, how long can they last? Because the generators are going to use fuel. The trucks that would resupply the generators are not going to be able to get fuel because the gas stations don't have electricity to pump gasoline. So if we run out of electric power for any length of time, we're going to be in a world of hurt. So you want to prepare yourself. And that's, in that case, what I'm trying to get to here is you want to avoid, or if you can, find another way to heat your food besides your electric stove. Because if you don't have an electric stove, you're not going to be able to heat your food. You're not going to be able to heat water for washing. You want to try to set up if you can get it, just a little Coleman gas stove with those little cans of propane will feed you, will heat your food, and you can heat water on it for washing and washing dishes and for your own sanitation. I keep a little 5-gallon solar shower, they call them. They hang up in a tree and they're black and they absorb the sunlight. And if we lose our water here, or at least hot water because the gas has gone out, then we can take some water, put it on the stove, heat it up, and put some of that water with cold water in that solar shower and still have a nice little shower in our shower and not freeze to death if it's wintertime, because taking a cold shower is never a good thing. I've tried it, but I don't like it.
It's a challenge, yeah.
Yeah, and it makes you not want to do that, and then you test your sanitation, because if you don't shower or clean yourself pretty regularly and you get a little cut, it will get infected pretty quickly. So that's a hazard there. And the last bullet down here, I put contact the governor and representatives and let them know we need to open Arizona. There's a lot of question about that, but my feeling and many people's feeling is we are in more danger from the financial damage that's being done than we are by the COVID virus. There's questions as to how many people will die just from being isolated, from being not having enough food, not having proper nutrition, versus the people who are actually going to die from the virus itself. So we want to get Arizona back open as best we can. So talk to the governor.
Totally agree with that one. I'd love people to just write and inundate Governor Ducey with telephone calls and messages. So that's what we need to do. Sure.
Yeah, there's a website you can go to that is contact the governor. I don't have it in front of me, but you can go find it on Google. Just say contact Governor Ducey, and it comes up. It's just a little screen, and you put in your name and address, and then you write your message and mail it to him. So that's important.
Okay, next slide is what to stock up on.
Right. Okay. Now this is important. The last time I was on your show here, Don, I said 6 weeks of food, and you looked at me askance, as it were. But I've gone to 2 months now, because I fear we're going to have a longer drag time this time than we did last time. I recommend everybody have 2 months of food, and that's a minimum of 2 meals per day per person, and hopefully that would be at least 2,000 calories. If we're going to be sedentary and just sitting around watching television during this lockdown, 2,000 calories is probably enough. If we have to do any work, gardening or anything like that out in the sun, you're going to probably need a little bit more than that. So, but a minimum of 2 months supply of food per person with 2 meals per day. Water, it's recommended that everybody have at least 1 gallon per person per day. And that's for drinking, cooking, washing, and anything else you need water for. More is better. More is always better. And you may find that your neighbors who haven't been as frugal as you can end up in a problem, and you want to be able to help them if you can. One of the other things you want to keep on hand is as much of a supply of your prescription medications and other daily medications, vitamins, minerals, supplements, things like that. And We can't forget our pets. You want to have at least as much time with your pets, food supply as you have for yours. And unique needs of elderly and children has to be taken into account. Oxygen generators or things like that. And your children need to have some kind of diversion if we're going to be locked up for any length of time. Children get restless pretty fast, so you want to have something to take care of them. And the last thing I'm noting here is cash. If the power were to go out or the internet disrupted in any way, you wouldn't be able to use your credit cards or your debit card at the grocery store. And cash will work at least for a while in that case. So that's important to have some of that on hand. We can move on to 8.
Okay, slide 8, water.
Yeah. Okay, and this is like I said, this is Southern Arizona. Water is life. There's no question about that. We talk about 3 days without water. You get out in that hot sun and have to do any work at all, you're not going to make it 3 days. So you want to keep yourself hydrated, because if you get dehydrated, you can actually put yourself in the hospital because your body will react adversely to being dehydrated. I read a documentary once on dying of thirst, and that was so frightening to me, because what happens, first of all, you get your regular thirst in your mouth, you get thirsty. But then what happens is your blood starts drying up while it's pumping through your body. And of course, as your blood dries up, it doesn't get the oxygen to the parts of your body, especially the external parts. So your hands and your feet start going. And then as it gets drier, as it gets less wet, it's dehydrating, it starts making your heart pump harder, because your heart is pumping now chocolate syrup instead of iced tea. So dying of thirst is a pretty nasty way to go. Okay, so where can you find it? Well, of course, from the tap, if the water's still running. Go to the next slide, 9.
Okay, not where
All
you
right.
think.
Yeah, a lot of people don't think about where they have water in their house, sitting around doing nothing or whatever. But some of the places you can find water is like the hot water heater. Mine's a 40-gallon hot water heater, and there's a spigot down at the bottom of the hot water tank that you can open and drain water out. Now, if you're going to use it for drinking water, it's best to turn it off first, because it's going to come out of there at about 120, 130 degrees. And so you'd want to turn the hot water heater off before you used it for a water supply. And the other thing I would also suggest, and this is for emergency water use, is most people don't drain their hot water tanks as often as they should. You're supposed to do it at least once a year, and twice a year wouldn't hurt, because what happens is the interior of the tank it eats away at the things. You've got an anode in there, and it dissolves and it falls down to the bottom of the tank. And so when you turn that spigot on, it creates a flow that picks up all that crap that's on the bottom of the tank, and that's what comes out. So you want to drain that once a year or so as little as possible of that stuff is in the water.
Yeah, that's not vitamins and minerals, huh?
No, it's just minerals. It's like aluminum or something. I don't know what it is. Anyway, one of the other places that you can find water is in your toilet tank. Now, that's not the toilet bowl, that's the toilet tank. That water is clean. It comes right out of the wall and fills up the tank. Now, that tank is attached to the toilet. I would not drink that water. If you notice, I've got an asterisk on that thing, and that's to remind you to filter that water. And you can either filter it by boiling it or putting some bleach in it or something like that, because it may be kind of germy from sitting around there on your toilet. Something else to look for is your hose nibs, your outdoor hose nibs. Most of us have water that goes into the house and goes up into the attic. And so there's still some water in those lines, even after you drain the last drop out of the sink. There's still water in those lines, and so you can go out and open that hose nib and maybe fill up a gallon or so of fresh water. Your ice maker has, if it's like mine, it's full of ice, and that's all water. So it's best to use that as if the power goes out or you run out of water. Gone to 10.
Yeah, last time we were together, we also talked about filling up your tub, right?
Yes, that's if you see it coming, it's a good thing to do is fill up the tub. I gave my it's called a Bob, B-O-B, and it's just a big Ziploc bag that you can put in the tub, and you fill it up, and it's got a little pump that squeezes the water out. So there's close to 100 gallons in a bathtub like that. That's good to do. Okay, if the water runs out in your house, you can go outside the home to your neighbor's home if they're away, and I don't mean that in a sneaky way. I mean if they're not home, they've got water in their pipes too.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing to keep in mind. Local lakes or ponds. My next door neighbor, I hope I never have to do this, but she has a little water feature in her backyard that it's got probably 50 gallons of water in it that runs down a little waterfall and all this kind of stuff. That water's going to sour pretty fast because she won't, if the power goes out, because she won't have the pump running. But there's water there. You just kind of have to think about where it is. Some of our neighbors have swimming pools. And swimming pools are not recommended because of all the chlorine in them to keep them fresh and clean. But, excuse me, but sunlight, which is what kills the chlorine in the pool and why you have to keep replenishing it, will kill the chlorine after a few days anyway. So it still requires some filtration and cleaning, but you can use water out of the swimming pool after it's sat for a few days without being rechlorinated. So those are some of the things you can use. Excuse me, moving on to 11.
Water filtration.
Yeah. There are a number of filters and ways to keep water or make water drinkable. Many people have seen the Life Straw. It's a little kind of a light blue tube about 8 inches, 10 inches long, and you can dip that into the water and just drink straight out of it. This is not very appetizing, but I've seen a video filter of a guy go into a McDonald's and stick his Life Straw right in the toilet in a McDonald's and drink right out of it. And he claims he had no problems. Of course, I didn't see him later, but he that's what he said. It showed a lot of courage, if not intelligence. But the point is, the Life Straw will filter out a lot of stuff. Sawyer makes a similar filter. Both of those can be picked up at Walmart. And then ceramic candles, they have a little bit different filtering system. They are like if you can think of it as a ceramic sponge. Water goes in and it goes through so many little cuts and crevices and holes and things like this that what comes out the bottom is relatively clean. It doesn't take out a lot of toxins, but it takes out the dirt and that sort of thing. So you wouldn't want to use it to, say, for instance, try to filter water out of an old 55-gallon drum that had gasoline in it. That would not be a good thing. But if you were to just take some water out of the ditch, if they had a rainstorm and there was water flowing down the street, you could capture that and run it through a ceramic filter or something like that and make it drinkable. Then there are two commercially available filters. One's the Berkey and the other is Alexa Pure. Now there are probably others, but these are the two that I'm familiar with. And what they look like is the coffee maker you have at your church. It's just a big aluminum tube with a spigot on the bottom. And then in the top part, there are one or two carbon filters, and you just pour the untreated water into the top of the Berkey or the Alexa Pure, and the water gravity will drip down through into the bottom part of the thing, and it's very highly filtered. 99.999% of everything that was in the water is taken out. So those are things you can do and keep in your kitchen and use whatever water you can find in your backyard or whatever. If you want to filter it, these will work. The little pitchers that you get, trying to think of what the name is, Pure, P-U-R, you can get those at Walmart too. And those are good for taking minerals out of the water, but they won't filter the really bad stuff out. Those are not water filtration systems like the Lysa or the Sawyer. So you want to try to avoid those or avoid using those in filtering your water. And we can move on to 12.
Okay, water purification.
Yeah. Now, sometimes filtering won't do what you need to do because the water has chemicals in it or toxins or things of this nature. And you actually have to purify that water and take that stuff out. And one of the ways to do that is boiling the water. One of my friends recently bought, actually it's just a still. It looks like a pressure cooker, and the top has a little spigot that comes out over the edge. And you put water in there and you boil it, and as it boils up, it goes through a condenser, and what drips out of the back is just pure water. All the toxins and everything else are caught in the pot itself. Bleach, there's directions on how to use bleach to purify water. And then there's water purification tablets, which have been around for years, issued to our GIs when they had to fill a canteen out of a ditch or something like that. They usually have a little bottle of water purification tablets, and you put them in the purification tablets in the canteen, screw the top on, shake it up real good until the pill is dissolved, and then you let it sit for 30 minutes, and the water is usually drinkable at that point. Another way to purify water is with an ultraviolet lamp. It'll kill all the germs in the water. Again, it won't take the heavy metals out, but it will make it safe to drink to a certain extent. And we can move on to 13.
13 is human waste.
Yeah, this is something that a lot of people don't think about, but if we have a water problem in our system, and especially if we have a power failure, our sanitation system, the sewage system, while we're here and the water runs downhill, it gets down to a point where it's got to be lifted up into the aerator tanks and purified or cleaned anyway. And if we don't have power, then that water won't go up in it can't be lifted by the pumps, and consequently it'll start backing up, and it'll back up to your house. So you will be able to flush your toilets for a period of time after power goes out, but then it's going to become a factor in your comfort and safety. So what I suggest is a portable toilet and disposable bags. You can get these again at Walmart, and not very expensive, but you go to the paint department, get one of those 5-gallon buckets, and you go back to the camping section and get what's called a luggable loo. It's a toilet seat that fits on top of that bucket. And in the interim, you buy these big garbage bags that come in a Ziploc. And you put the garbage bag inside the bucket, put the luggable loo on top of it, and you can do your business. We put cat litters in ours when we go camping to keep the smell down and that sort of thing. And then as the bag reaches some level that toilet paper and waste, you take the seat off, you roll up the top of the big black bag, stuff it down inside the Ziploc and zip that up, and then you've got basically a smell-proof bag of poop. And you put that in your trash can, or if there's no trash pickup, you throw it over the fence in your neighbor's yard, whatever you want to do. But I don't recommend that. That's just.
So I think we're going to have to hustle along here, Paul, because we have a limit on Zoom time. So
okay.
If you can quickly go through the last two slides, or the next
Yeah.
two slides, and get to the last one.
Okay. Other considerations: home security. It's a good idea if we got problems coming down like they're having in Portland and Seattle and all, to have sturdy locks and alarm systems on your house. The front door, which is used by most burglars, and windows should be locked and barred as best they can. You don't want any vegetation in front of your windows that can hide an intruder's attempts to enter. And if you've got the ability to put motion detector lights around your house, and preferably solar powered so they remain usable in case of a power outage, those will defer. And most policemen will tell you burglars are like cockroaches. When the lights go on, they leave. So that's a good thing to do. And moving on to 15, a dog that barks when a stranger approaches can alert you. It can be a big dog or a small dog. All you need is the noise. The next one is firearms. If you're comfortable and trained, you can stage firearms around various locations in your house. If you have small children or curious uncles, you might want to put them in little safes that you can open very easily with a biometric safe or a key. And doors, one of the things they recommend is getting 3-inch long screws and taking out the screws that hold your door frame hinges to your frame, because the way doors are put in, they use about 1.5 inch screw, and all the frame is connected to is a ring of 1x1s around the door frame. With the 3-inch screws, you can actually go back and go all the way through those things and into the 2x4s that frame the door itself. And that'll make the door a lot stronger. You can add a Katie bar or some other secondary deterrent. It's also recommended that you change out your front door with a steel door and frame, or add a steel security door. And that's, I think that's it. The last thought is that I will be giving some more training on food and water at the Republican Club of Green Valley, Sahuarita, at 11:30 on August 4th at the club headquarters, which is in the Village Shopping Center, Unit 60. And it'll say Republican headquarters on top of that.
Right, Green Valley Village, and there's Paul's email.
Yeah, so if anybody has any questions, you can send me an email there at pima19st@gmail.com, and I'll be glad to try to do it. We had a class on firearms last Saturday, and I got a note from a guy today, and he wanted to know what kind of ammunition to get for his new gun and where to get it serviced and that sort of thing. So I was able to help him today in an email.
Good.
And that's it.
Very good. Thanks so much for coming on.
Okay. Thank you for.
We'll put notification of your class at headquarters on the website and on the website calendar, and send out some other messages about it using the club information. So I think we got you covered, buddy.
All right. Well, thank you, Don. Tell your lovely
Paul.
wife hello.
Good to see you. I will say hello to Mary Margaret, and
Okay.
you take care, and thank you again for coming on.
You bet. See ya.
Thank you. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Here I am back in full screen, and I just want you to know that we're very thankful to Paul for coming on and talking about these issues and preparedness. It's kind of not for everybody, but if you've given it some thought before, and it's kind of been a struggle over the last 3 or 4 months since March. I mean, we've been going at this since March 17th, right? And it keeps getting extended, and goes up and down. And I don't know how long it's going to go on. Is there going to be a second run? Who knows? Who knows what the CDC is going to come up with? We're very, very suspicious, like Ken Bennett, about the CDC. Got to take a second look at everything. So anyway, I want to thank you all very much for being on, joining us tonight. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for coming on. And I'm sitting here in front of this beautiful sunset in Southern California, which of course I'm not there. We haven't been to California in several years, but I can be there due to the magic of Zoom and a green screen. So I like switching up the backgrounds on the program, and I hope you enjoyed this one. Again, if you have any questions, Paul gave you his email, and it was good. It's good to go through those things, and so you all have a great evening. God bless you all. Thanks for joining us. I hope we're out of this pretty soon. I urge you to call the governor, contact the governor through his website, write him a message, and say, let's get out of this. Let's open the schools. Let's get people back to work. Let's get going. We got people rioting in the streets, tearing things up, with no regard for social distancing or anything else. Some of them wear masks, but I think they were wearing masks anyway. We're really not a country of people that wears masks. Masks are kind of a thing of. I think I remember ISIS and Al Qaeda. I think they wear masks. So we're kind of reluctant to do that, and we have our freedoms and liberty, and we love it. And we don't care if somebody wants to wear a mask. That's fine. If they feel that it's protecting them and they need to do that, that's okay. But Patty and I just don't. And we have that choice. If we go in a store and they require a mask, we'll do it. But we know how to social distance. We're walking, breathing, thinking adults, and we haven't gone and sat in any bars with big crowds or any sports bars. Some of them have gotten in trouble, obviously, but so far we're okay, and with God's grace we'll stay okay. But I hope He blesses all of you. And I'm not sure who we're going to have on the show next week, but we're going to have somebody probably Wednesday or Thursday night. We will let you know as soon as we have a guest, and we will see you next week. Good night, everybody.